Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you very much, Varsha ma'am, Niyati, Priyanshi, and of course, the Chambers of Tax Consultant. It's my complete privilege, honor, and more than anything, I'm truly humbled that you all deemed me as appropriate to be invited for this panel discussion. Um, Moving over quickly to your question, because I have so many things to speak about, but in sum and substance, how I'll just give a brief background about my journey and what it feels like to be a dual qualified lawyer. So I pursued law because I was very, very interested in commercial business aspects of the law. And how did I derive that interest was when I was really young. I lost my brother, and while he was battling kidney disorders, we had to raise funds for him. And that's when I came in close proximity to what it really meant to tap funds and reach out to investors. That is exactly why my origination to my purpose, so to speak, in capital markets law. When I decided to study law, I did not really know exactly how it would turn out. But while I was in government law college, I took deep interest in understanding the fundamentals of contract law, companies law, and all of those related aspects, trade law. And eventually, I realized that the world would be an oyster if I decide to move on and also understand the nitty gritties of common law jurisdictions like England and Wales and New York, particularly because New York law and English law are the primary laws generally governing all cross border transactions. And why is that so? Because of the rich jurisprudence that these two law frameworks have built for themselves. That is exactly why investors and people across the globe feel comfortable and confident in choosing that law as the governing law for their contracts. That's exactly why I decided to move to the United States and pursue my master's and take the New York bar exam. And in summary, to answer, how does it feel to be dual qualified? I think today I can say it feels deeply satisfying and very, very rewarding. But it's a very, very grueling, hard journey. It's absolutely not as easy or fancy as it sounds or looks from the outside. It is a lot of sleepless nights. But yeah, we will obviously come to those in the process of the questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, ma'am, actually, for sharing your journey and giving us a gist of your background with respect to law. However, I have one real fundamental question. So, firstly, ma'am has multiple accolades to her name, and she has pursued not only an LLB, not only an LLM, but she has also gone on to pursue an executive LLM along with her solicitors. So, what I really want to understand from you is that how does an education really help one evolve as a lawyer, especially because of the fact that you have been in the legal profession for a couple of years now? Do you really think it's important to pursue an LLM or a specialization, or do you think it's the work experience that really counts?
That's a great question, and I get that all the time. I would say that there are two aspects to this. There is no one right answer. There are some people who would choose to purely focus on the practical aspects of, actually just practicing law, and that's absolutely fine. I think what one can stand to gain from pure practical experiences can never come through, opening and reading a book. But likewise, the opposite is also true, which oftentimes we forget. I think what really helped me when I decided to pursue an education was because when you take the time to educate yourself, you really take out time to not balance yourself between internships and study, which can get extremely overwhelming and all consuming. And you decide to take out that time to focus and purely study law for the pursuit and joy of what it is to study the law. So I think in answer to your question that, why did I kind of choose to decide to do the executive LLM, if at all that was your question, or I'm just still going to jump the gun and answer that, is because I decided primarily to do it because of one reason. The executive LLM program at King's College London is the only course in the world which has only 25 students selected across all countries. And so it's a very close knit community of students that you are become friends with over a period of 1 year. The other thing is that it provides an education where you can also study and parallelly pursue your education. Most important, the reason why I chose it was because of the curriculum. The curriculum is completely catered for students who want to assimilate the practical aspects as well as theoretical aspects. So just to give you an example, I had subjects like negotiations, where I did not type out an answer. I actually negotiated a cross border transaction or a dispute resolution, what it means to actually sit with an arbitrator and do it. And I really wanted that experience because I was put in a room with people, somebody from Cambodia, somebody from Vietnam, somebody from United States. And when you see those different cultural perspectives, it just opens your mind to the various possibilities of one aspect of law. So that's exactly why I would say that there is no one right way to do it. It's both of those are perfectly fine. You just need to find out your true balance.
Definitely, in fact, because we always have people telling us, we'll always have people telling us two sides of the story. Someone telling us that I think you should really work and gain that work experience because that's what's going to help you go ahead. And someone telling you that, hey, if you want to actually get into legal academia or become a professor or anything on those lines, then your education is what is really going to help you.
Yeah.
But thank you for putting that so simply for us and really inspiring us to actually study further, even as we go ahead in the profession. But I also have a follow-up question to what you really said, which is that you went on to pursue an executive LLM from King's College London. However, when it comes to studying abroad, we all know that financing education abroad is one really difficult aspect as well. And you managed to get a scholarship as well. So if you could share a little about about how to go about with the finances, or how to go about actually aspiring to get a scholarship in order to study abroad.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think for me personally, finances were a huge consideration. Truth be told, I never came from a family where I had all the money, and my parents would tell me, okay, so, beta, you can go to study. So it was never like that. I was very clear at the outset that one, I wanted to pursue a master's. So let's just take a step back. I knew I wanted to do a master's. I also knew that I needed some finances to be able to pursue that, because studying abroad is really costly, whether in the UK or in the United States. Therefore, I worked in India for a couple of years just to build a little bit of corpus. I mean, it is nothing compared to the amount of expenses, but even if you can save some amount of money, that is helpful. Number three, in terms of the scholarships that you can apply for, it's important to know that there are various scholarships that are available from there is Casey Shiv Desani scholarship, Tata Trust scholarships, many scholarships. But it is important to know which scholarship would apply to you. A lot of times, students just bulk apply to scholarships, and that's just not how it works. For example, a Casey Mahendra scholarship is for students who have done a lot of pro bono activities, and people who have been involved in with NGO work. So you should try to figure out the criteria for each scholarship and then target accordingly. For example, I applied for a Fulbright scholarship and I did not receive the scholarship. And then in hindsight, I thought to myself that maybe I did not realize that the criteria required, I was not befitting for that. And that's okay. So I think it's important to identify the criteria for the scholarship. Number four, there are many avenues available for financing a foreign education. So I took two education loans. I took Prodigy Finance and I took Empower Finance loan. And of course, there are hefty interest rates available, interest rates that are, charged because these are all foreign exchange denominated. But you've got to tell yourself and trust that with that education, the world will be your oyster and you will be able to repay back. So if you should not be short sighted to only see the amount of expenses, learn to look beyond and realize that an education abroad can open the channels of your doors to so many possibilities that you would never even have thought or conceived in your mind.
Definitely. And I think I would like to also add one point here, which is that because I'm a law student myself, what I have also seen is that a lot of people opt for scholarships just for the sake of getting a scholarship. So no matter what the university, they just want that scholarship. So while looking for a scholarship at the same time, I also think it's important to balance which university you really want to go to, and
Yeah.
not just go to any random university because you're getting a scholarship there.
Right, absolutely. I think I would totally agree with that. And I would just say one thing that oftentimes I get asked by students that, which universities to apply to. It is important to take a step back before you decide to make applications overseas and think about what is your subject area of interest. So, step one is identify your subject area of interest. Step two is identify which law schools have the best professors teaching those subjects. It does not make any sense to just follow a particular brand name but not having the kind of professors who are exemplary in that field. For example, I applied to a Harvard Law School, but I knew that probably I would not make it, or even if I made it, that would not be the best choice for me because Harvard Law School is not the most famous for business laws. It is mostly known for, academia, it is known for public interest law, things like that. So it is important to have that in sight. And likewise, somebody, for example, wants to pursue academia, wants to become a professor, wants to do a PhD. Yale Law School is the perfect place to be. And for somebody who wants to do commercial law, either UPenn, where I went to, or Columbia or NYU, because they are in the heart of commercial district New York City. So it's very important to be prudent about the choice of law school, and don't just apply for the sake of bulk applying, because college administrations who review your applications, they can see through, they can clearly see through which application is a genuine application and which application is not.
Right. In fact, I really have a very important question which I got because of the discussion that we just had right now, which was that there are so many fields within law itself. There are so many subfields. There's human rights, international law, there's commercial law, and much more. So how should you, or anyone in fact as a law student, try to understand what is their field of interest? Do you do internships? Should you go for moot competitions? Or should you really gain that sort of work experience? Or is it just simply a matter of reading? How did you go about with your decision making process?
Right. I would say that's a fairly hard question to answer because like previous questions, it's there is really no straight jacket formula for this, but it is important to do a combination of things. So I can tell you what I did when I joined GLC. I started interning from second year itself, just to get an understanding of what it meant to really do law. So my first internship was with actually a real estate developer. It had nothing to do with like a law firm. But that's where I understood that, okay, this is what real estate law is all about. These are what lease agreements are about. What is redevelopment agreement? And I think the best thing that happens when you, take up an internship is you realize what you don't want. And in life, that is a very, 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 very good and important learning, to know what you don't want to know or what you don't want to do. Because in today's world where we are loaded with information, it is very easy to get distracted with dramatic number of things available to us. So I think number one is try to do internships. A lot of people will say that do longer internships. Yes, I agree. Maybe a 1 month internship is not really sufficient. So at least try to do a 2.5 months, 3 months of internship. That gives you a decent amount of flavor of where is this the kind of work culture that I would like, is this the kind of thing that I would like to do day in day out. And also, one of the key skill sets that is required in order to understand, how to understand what is it that I want to do, is do not hesitate reaching out to seniors from different fields within law and set up coffee chats with them and ask them. In India, one of the key skill sets that is either underestimated or not thoroughly practiced is the art of networking. It is very, very important to reach out to people and speak to people. And in my experience, I would say that people are more than happy to share their insights with you. Because, and one of the key questions that you could ask them, and this is something that I was told by my senior, is ask a particular transactional lawyer that what does a good day look like to you. Ask a litigator what does a good day look like to you. Ask a chartered accountant, and listen to their responses, and then try to think whether I would really enjoy that kind of a day. Is that something that suits my interest? Is that something that I would want to see my day look like? I think that's the second aspect. And nonetheless, regardless of all the internships and all the networking, there is just no substitute to reading. So you need to be updated with, you need to keep updated with what is happening in terms of current affairs, having a view, forming a view, reaching out to people who blog, probably also blogging, contributing your ideas, because people like people who hold ideas and opinions. So I think that is the only way to find out. And it is fine if you may take some time to find out. Everybody does not have all answers, figured it all out at the age of 25, 26, and it's okay. I think probably I still feel many times I don't know exactly is this is the right thing, and it's absolutely normal to feel like that. So I guess it's a combination of reading, keep networking and reaching out to your seniors, taking them out for coffee, asking them, having informal chats with them. And number 4 is doing those small internships. Do a judicial clerkship, do an internship maybe in a in-house department like a real estate company or something like that. Do an internship in a litigation law firm, do an internship with a corporate law firm. Get a sense and flavor of how all these things are, so that you are able to position yourself and decide, is this something that I would really want to do?
Right. I think what you said is so relevant because even as law students, we're always told that find yourself a legal mentor. Someone who's going to be there with you right from step one into your legal profession all the way till you actually start going up the ladder within the profession, because they are the ones who actually have first-hand experience. Like today, I think we would listen more to you than we would listen to what we really learn at college or in class, because you're the one actually giving us that first-hand experience today and actually inspiring us to take up different avenues within the legal profession. So that is something really relevant, networking and mentorship within the legal space as well. But I also have another fundamental question right here, which is that what are the skills that one should really possess in order to move forward in the legal profession? I know that there isn't like a blanket set, there's no like blanket formula or a set of skills that you really, really need. But because of the fact that you have been at various places, interacted with different people within the profession, what, according to you, are the most fundamental skills that are required irrespective? And also, what do you think would be the difference in skills that would be needed either in the pre-COVID and the post-COVID world?
Wow. All right. Let me answer, the skill sets that are required in order to not just survive in the profession, but thrive in it. I think number one, and there is no substitute to that, it is resilience. You need to be able to rise up every single day in the face of adversity when things may not seem absolutely hunky dory and everything might not be going okay. So basically making peace with uncertainty, and standing up and showing up, dressing up and showing up every single day. Resilience, a very, very key skill set. Number 2, in terms of technical skill sets, I would say it is very important to have an eye for detail as a lawyer, whether you are a litigation lawyer or whether you are a transactional attorney. Because at the end of the day, a client is coming to you and paying you for your eye for detail and judgmental abilities, your ability to have an opinion, like I said. So, and having an opinion will only come when you have read a lot, when you have read about one subject but different perspectives, so then you are able to form an informed opinion. A lot of times we don't read enough opinions and just form our own opinion, which is not backed by data points. So it's important to be able to go above and beyond and really think about the different perspectives and then form your own views, and don't judge your views. It may be right, wrong, it is your view, is your view. And I think the last skill set, which is extremely important, is a very, very high levels of emotional quotient. I think it is an underestimated trait across the legal profession, that only having IQ can take you here, but what got you here won't get you there. What will get you there is only your emotional quotient, which is, for example, you know learning to deal with people, learning to deal with people of different mindsets, different temperaments, because your boss may not always be the most kind person, you may not always have the best peers, but being able to realize and have that empathy that different people are also facing their own battles, and so it is important to not judge them too soon, but have the empathy to position yourself in their shoes and see things from their perspective, and have that EQ to develop client relationships. All of these things are key to success in as a lawyer as you grow up the ladder. And in answer to your second question, in terms of what do I think is required for skill set from a COVID perspective, now everything being online again, all of that, I think the first three things that I said still hold true. Having high levels of EQ, resilience, eye for detail, and being able to form opinions. But I think one of the skill sets that is really required in a post COVID era would be understanding and being savvy with technology. There is no substitute to how technology is changing the way things are perceived. A lot of times lawyers say that we don't want to do numbers, that's exactly why we decided to be lawyers. Really very sorry, it just does not work like that. A lawyer today cannot say that I don't want to learn numbers, or that I don't know Excel sheet, that is somebody else's job. It just doesn't work like that. You need to have fundamental skill sets of understanding numbers, being savvy with reading, doing Excel sheets, simple basic calculations, nothing rocket science, but that's important. And I think the last skill set that I would say is that keep up to date and read about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and things like that, that are really changing the way we used to see currency. Maybe in a couple of years you will not really be holding a rupee note. It will all be bitcoins or some kind of coins, or cashless transactions. What does it all mean? So just being aware of those things and not having an aversion to it is really important.
Such a relevant point set by you, Miss Almitra, because I think the points, especially with respect to having the emotional quotient, I think is so relevant, because that's something that all of us always miss out on, but that's also something that will prevent us from really cursing our bosses as well as we go down in the longer run. But there are two things that I would also like to add here, which is that I think as a lawyer, you need a lot of patience, because there are going to be days where things are not going to go your way, or as a litigator you're going to take about a good 5 to 6 years to simply just start earning a good amount of money. So I think patience is also extremely important. And in the post COVID world, I also believe the way you sell yourself online, that's also going to be really important as a lawyer. Like, there has to be a reason why clients really want to come to you instead of going to someone else. And when you're not face to face with them, I think online it gets even more difficult, which is where all your self branding skills, as they really call it, come into picture. So,
Yes, perfect. I completely agree with what you're saying. Absolutely second that. And I would, I mean, probably jumping the gun right now, but I would totally recommend students to read this book called Never Eat Alone by Keith Farazi. It is one of the best books I have read on networking. And the author actually gives 7 or 10 tips on what to do, what action items to take when you have met somebody. It's really important to network, to learn to sell yourself. And those are key skill sets, because at the end of the day, as a law firm partner, all that you are really doing is you're selling your services, you're selling your skill set. So if you don't believe in yourself, you will never be able to sell the product, right? So it's very important.
correct. That's where all the importance of marketing always came into picture, everything that we learned in school and college so far. But since we're speaking of skill sets, I would also like to understand, for the benefit of everyone listening to this conversation, that what is the difference between being a transactional attorney or simply a lawyer in India or internationally? And have you yourself noticed that there is a difference in skill sets or a difference in the way lawyers work either in India or abroad that you think Indian lawyers or Indian law students could really work upon? But sorry, before that, before you answer that question, I would just like to tell all the participants that if any of you have any sort of questions, then please put them either in the chat box or in the Q&A box, because we would love to take up your questions and would love to get your perspective as well.
Sure. So I think in terms of what are the skill sets that I would say are, so let me take a step back. What is the difference between being a lawyer in India and being a lawyer internationally? I would say that internationally, I think the bar is a little high in terms of the output that you deliver, only because the stakes in terms of the the amount, the monetary involvement is extremely high. We are talking about millions and billions of dollars, and it has a lot of foreign exchange implications and trade law implications. So I think the stakes are very high as an international lawyer. Number two is that when you are tagged as an international lawyer, whether you are England and Wales qualified or New York qualified, the expectation is that you will really be able to kind of provide sophisticated answers to questions around jurisprudence, around comparative law issues, things like that. In answer to your question about what is it that I think lawyers in India can do differently, before they probably step into or move internationally, I would say that I think it's really important to be very very understanding of cultural differences, which I think Indians are very good at, because we are a country, unity in diversity. We are all different within the same country. But leaving your clutches of India, where you are you have all comforts, you have your mother, you have your father, you have everybody, just going outside and stepping out of your comfort zone is something that is really helpful. Because I think a lot of times Indian lawyers, we tend to remain in our own bubble and think that this is the world, whereas there is a lot that lies outside and which we are oblivious to. So I think that, and I think the other skill set that is very important, and I would really encourage everybody to really try to imbibe it, is whenever you study law or you are practicing law in a law firm or you are doing litigation, anything, please ensure you know the why of what you do. Whether it is preparing an argument, preparing a brief for your senior, preparing any kind of memo or a note on a topic, please try to question yourself and ask the why was the law the way it was. It's like we all studied in statutes of interpretation, the mischief rule, those four questions: why was the law made, what was the scenario before the law came into picture. Ask yourself those questions. There is no escape to knowing fundamentals, period. And you will realize as you move internationally that people have their fundamentals really solid, and that's what sets them apart. Because when you go up the ladder, you are interacting with people in C suites, they can see through if you do not know your fundamentals. So it's very very important to know your fundamentals. Keep asking yourself, and instead, do not move ahead if you do not understand your fundamental. Keep asking your senior. Do not hesitate asking questions. In India, we are very hesitant to ask the senior, what if this is perceived as a stupid question? There are really no stupid questions. It is important to to have basic questions at the start of your career, rather than 5 years down the line when there is an expectation from you to know it. So I would say that that is a skill set that I learned, because I was very hesitant to ask any question. I was just okay, no, let me try and figure it out. It's fine, definitely do your own research to figure it out, but don't reinvent the wheel every time. Somebody has probably already done that research. So ask them that, how did you go about it, why did you do this, and always keep asking the why.
Right. And in fact, when it comes to law, I think the most fundamental and important thing is interpretation, because two sides argue simply on the basis of interpretation, which is the reason why it's very important to get your fundamentals right. And like you said, as you go ahead, you always have much more responsibility. So then there's very little scope for error as you start climbing up the ladder. In fact, since we're speaking of responsibility as well, and since you're someone who's been in the highest echelons of leadership in multiple law firms, we would also like to understand, how do you really go about entailing that amount of responsibility? Because as a lawyer, all of us know that work hours are really, really bad. There are days when you have to work for about 20 hours or much more. And there are days when you have to read about thousands of pages and yet meet client expectations the next day. So how do you really go about handling that responsibility, handling that work-life balance, and actually maintaining a good lifestyle too?
Great question again. I think, I mean, I'm really really impressed with the kind of questions that you have come up with. They're very very thought provoking. I would say that first and foremost, I was very stuck up on always have finding work life balance, and then I I really like and love reading lives of personalities who have done remarkable things. And I was reading Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and he says that there is really nothing like work-life balance. Try to aim for work-life harmony. So when you try to aim for harmony, you are not stuck up on not getting back home at 7 p.m., or for, maybe you need to meet a certain client deadline. In terms of how do I maintain, how do I manage to tackle all of those things, I would just say one thing, that whatever does not kill you only makes you stronger. Remember that always. So there are extremely tiring days, but the days that are most challenging are also the days that are most satisfying. So if your days, one of the things that I heard a couple of days back on a video that I received, and it said that stress should be treated as a privilege. The moment you realize that the fact that you have stress is your privilege, that you are deemed significant enough to have that stress, is when your perspective to stress will change. And when that changes, you will see things very differently. You wouldn't approach it in the fashion that, oh my god, mujhe ye bhi karna hai, mujhe wo bhi karna hai. The fact that you have been given that level of responsibility is because somebody trusts you. So being in the position of somebody who's trustworthy is a lot better than the other side, right? So I think changing your perspective to the pressure is very important. I am still trying to learn it. It's really not easy to master. These are very simple things, but it takes little time to really be able to assimilate completely within yourself. And in terms of the second thing I would say that I would really encourage everybody to do is have a list of your top 3 non-negotiables. So for example, that could be going to do yoga at 4 p.m. every day. If you have decided that that is your time to do it, you must do it, regardless of anything. Because in this profession, in order to thrive, like I said, and not just survive, it is very important to be mentally very, very stable. Because it is super easy when you go up the ladder, you will have responsibilities, not just professional, your family responsibilities will increase, and it can completely bog you down. And it is important to take a step back and always remind yourself that why did I come to do this? When your mighty why is in place, the hows just follow. So how you would approach it will just follow, but be very clear about the purpose. Why did I choose to do this? I chose this, like I said, I was really, I mean, when I lost my brother, I knew that I really wanted to understand how do companies raise funds. Why was it so hard for me to raise funds for my brother's kidney operations and things like that? And that was my driver. So try to take a step back, introspect what is your driver. And I think the third thing I would say in terms of managing pressure is realize that everybody is in the same boat. So you are not doing something that somebody else is not. Everybody has a difficult journey to go through. It's not easy, but nothing great ever came easy. So have that clarity, and take every day forward and keep marching ahead. It'll all be fine. And just remember, whatever does not kill you only makes you stronger.
Definitely. I think all of us are really going to remember that one tagline, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because that's so true. Even my parents have also always told me that if there's nothing which is challenging, then what's the fun of it? Because you're not going to enjoy what you really do. And in fact, if there are any CAs who are really listening to this conversation, the 3 negotiables that you spoke about, in CA, we call it the ABC analysis. So basically, you prioritize what you really want to do, and then you devote your time to what you really like to do. So that's how it works. But of course, before we really take up questions from the audience, there is a fun rapid fire segment that I would also like to do with you, simply because we would also like to look at the fun side of lawyers and go beyond the mundane 9 to 5. So I'm going to quickly shoot some really fun questions. Hopefully the audience also likes it, and the audience can also throw in some questions, and you can answer them just the way you like. Okay. So my first question, in fact, my first question within the rapid fire is that tomorrow, if you wake up as a law firm partner the next morning, what is the first thing that you would do? You have to be honest about it.
I think I would be very, very excited. But more than that, I would really love to build a collaborative team. And I'm saying this very, very genuinely. I think oftentimes lawyers do not realize the importance of management skills, and that's exactly where consultants, and MBA students outshine us, is because they just have people skills. People skills is something that I would try to develop. I would try to really maximize on it the day I would become a lawyer, the day I would become a partner.
Okay, I totally agree with you right there, though. I think I would second you with that. But my next question is that let's say you have your own legal series, just like Suits. So, whom would you invite first as your guest on the legal series?
Wow, this is a great question. So I would really love to invite late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was the first justice of woman lady justice of the United States Supreme Court, which is the most coveted position in the world to be in. And she had her own set of triumphs that she faced. And I think her life is awe inspiring to me. So she passed away in November last year, but if I would ever be able to call anybody, it would be her.
Definitely. Wow. That was a really nice answer, though, especially for female lawyers right there, because I think female lawyers draw so much inspiration from her whole journey. But my next question to you is, what are three words that really describe the fun side of Almitra?
Oh, wow. The fun side of Almitra. I'm a very impromptu person. I am not at all planned. So, impromptu, I would say, is one of them, which actually is detrimental sometimes because as a lawyer, you need to be slightly planned. So, I think impromptu is one of the things. The other thing I would say is, wow, this is slightly difficult for me to answer. A fun side of me. I would say that, cracking up and laughing at maybe not the most cheesy humor is a trait that I have. So just being able to laugh at a trouble is something is a quality that I possess. I would say the uh, you know last thing I would say is probably not the fun side, but I'm very resilient, so very, very gritty.
Wow. Okay. And I have last two questions here because I also see questions in the question box which we would like to take up today, which is the very cliche, if not a lawyer, what would you be?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think I would definitely be a teacher because I
I
really like spending time with students.
that.
And it is something that is very, very close to my heart as a cause, education, and just being able to provide vocational training, informal training, formal. So I would definitely choose to be a teacher, if not a lawyer.
In fact, I really pictured you as a teacher too. So I sort of expected that answer from you because I just think you would do really well as a teacher. Okay. And the last question in the rapid fire segment is that if you were a law student in 2020, what is it different that you would do from your days of college?
Wow. Okay. I This is a very, very honest answer. I think I would 100% go back in time and do a judicial clerkship, like an internship with a judge. It's very, very important. It's important to understand how a judge writes a judgment. There is beauty to it. It's very, very it's pure art. And when you are able to step into that door and do that, it is mind blowing to how can a human being keep all biases aside and still pronounce a judgment. So I think I would do that.
Wow. I think that's of real relevance to us too because we're yet law students, and I think we're really going to pick this up and try to take up a judicial clerkship at least in our years of college. But there is a very relevant question from one of the attendees who says, and this is a question that I've also always had as someone who's also an LLM aspirant, that what sense does it make to do an LLM abroad, work there for 1 year, but then come back to India? Like, do you think that really adds value or makes sense, or is it just, or are you just doing it for the sake of doing it?
Yeah, great question, and I think super relevant. I would say that do not see your LLM as just a way to get a job overseas. With the current immigration rules across all countries, it is really hard to land a job abroad. And therefore, it is important to be very clear sighted that why am I doing the LLM? If you're from the LLM you can stand to gain a lot of things. It can be life changing. For me, if there is one year in my life that was life changing, was the LLM year, because it helped me build new relationships. It taught me what it meant to collaborate with people who are not like minded. It taught me what is true diversity. It taught me the importance of thinking things differently. And it also taught me to just step out of my comfort zone and try different cuisines, and go for different celebrations of different cultures. So I would say that, what is it that you stand to gain? Even if you go back to India, there is a lot that you stand to gain from an LLM. It's not always the money. So don't only see it as a return on investment, ROI. What is the calculated ROI that I'm gaining out of my LLM? Sometimes ROI can, be much beyond percentages and much beyond pure numbers.
Right. I think it's just about the holistic experience, like we spoke about, and the networking too, because in the end, when you go abroad, they are the ones who are going to give you work in the future when you come back.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I mean, today, if I probably go to Greece, I know I have a friend there. If I go to Madrid, I know I have a friend there. And just having that experience with people who are from completely different communities and cultures can be very, inspiring and extremely rewarding in life.
definitely. In fact, we have another interesting question too, and that speaks about a career switch. So, if at all a person wants to, let's say you suddenly stop liking law, or you want to shift from being a transactional lawyer to being a litigator and start going to court, what do you think? Is it about a career switch, or is it ever too late to make a career switch?
Yeah, great question. I think personally, I don't think there is ever a wrong time to switch. I think it's purely to do with what your own calling and your own heart says. If after 7 years of being a transactional lawyer, you feel that this is not the right thing for me, it is fine. And therefore, going back to what I was saying at the outset, whenever you decide to do whatever you actually do, every weekend maybe take a step back to introspect that, does this really align with my inner purpose? Does this really align with the person, the human being that I am? Because that will save you the effort that you may have to take 10 years down the line if you decide, okay, this is not what I wanted to do. So I think there is no right time and there is no wrong time also. It is, every time is the right time for you. So if at any point in time you feel that maybe I should not do litigation, I should move to transactional lawyering, it's fine. All that would require at that point in time is a lot of resilience, because you would have probably reached a level of seniority as a litigator, and then you are switching jobs to a transactional lawyer, and so you may be at the bottom of the food chain. But make peace with that. Do not try to hustle and try to gain everything quickly. Haste will always be a waste. So going back to your point, patience is key.
Right. And do it because you really want to and because you're passionate about it, and not because you want to be ahead of the race or you want to compete with someone as well.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so I see that we have a paucity of time, and I'm just going to ask you one last thing before we really end the session for today, and before I hand it over to Niyati and Varsha ma'am for them to end the session. Which
Yancy, have you asked all the questions that are there in the chat box? Have you
Yes,
taken?
I have addressed all the questions which are in the chat box. In fact, I was just coming to the last question, which is with
Oh,
respect to her last piece of recommendation for young lawyers, and also recommendations in terms of books, because a lot of the students have been asking questions pertaining to what books should you really read as a lawyer, or what
Yeah.
that you would recommend.
Right. In terms of books, I would say that, try to divide books into maybe books that are purely law based versus books that are also inspiring in terms of the journey of people. So for example, you can read A Promised Land by Barack Obama. Read some books that also inspire you to see political perspectives, because remember that law and politics are very intertwined. So if you do not understand politics properly, you will not be able to understand law, because at the end of the day, lawmakers are essentially members of parliament, so they are into politics, they are into day to day affairs. So I would say that, in terms of book recommendations, read book by Promised Land, Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama. It's a wonderful book. You can Also, I would say that in terms of technical abilities for law, I would really encourage students in India to read this book called Good Drafting Skills by Ross Guberman. Ross Guberman is a United States based extremely renowned author who teaches good writing skills, because legal writing skills is very essential for lawyers, which is underestimated and not properly harnessed in law schools back home in India. And in terms of other books, recently I have started reading this book, and I would recommend people to order and order this book. It's called Letters of the Law, an anthology. This book is actually a culmination, or rather a compilation of letters written by senior lawyers to their younger selves. And this is very inspiring, because this will tell you about their journey and the mistakes that they made and the things that they learned. So definitely do give this book a read, Letters of the Law. Yeah, those are my book recommendations.
Apurva sir, who is also an advocate at the High Court, has also recommended a book. In fact, MC Chagla's Roses in December.
Yeah.
And also, in fact, the plain old Mahatma Gandhi's book, My Experiments with Truth, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the first book I ever read in my life was Experiments with Truth by M.K. Gandhi, because my father was a huge fan of Mahatma Gandhi, and I think those books really inspire you to know what it is to live the lives of luminaries who have held such prestigious positions, and they had a lot more pressures than you and I have.
Right. Definitely, in fact. And also, sorry, I see one more question, in fact, in the question box from Darshan, who asked that, can you shed some light on building a network as a law student? How do you go about doing that? For example, let's say that you're not someone who's going abroad to study for an LLM. Then how do you go about building your network?
Yeah, great question. And I would say three things to do. Number one is that follow, legal bloggers. So, say for example, you go on Indian corporate law blog, see the articles that are written. No harm dropping an email to the person whose article you have read. But also, please take the effort to read the article that they have written and have your own opinion and tell them why you liked their article and their perspective. So, connect with them on that. The other thing, like I said before, was in India we don't do this often, but reach out to seniors across different law firms, or even companies where you probably aspire to work, and ask the general counsel or somebody for an informal coffee chat, and ask them, what does your day look like? And circling back to what I said before, please read the book Never Eat Alone by Keith Farazi. He gives very good tips on how to network. And I would say the final thing that you can do to build a network is be active on use social media as a tool rather than as something that is a distraction. So social media can be used as a tool where you can reach out to people, where you can listen to opinions, where you can share your own videos. So do that exercise.
Right. I think the last point that you said is the most relevant, that use social media wisely instead of wasting your time scrolling on Instagram. Because if you actually use it well, LinkedIn can be a very, very useful platform. Definitely. But thank you so much, Almitra ma'am, for answering all of these questions and for a wonderful and insightful panel discussion today. As a law student myself, I think I had a lot to learn from you and to really get inspired by your journey. And I really hope all the panelists, all the participants in this whole session also benefit from this and really get inspired by your journey. And if at all there's anything that you would like to tell them, any last piece of advice that you may have, or any words of wisdom for any law students or legal professions, then please, the floor is yours.
Wow. No, thank you so very much for this. This was extremely my absolute honor, and I'm truly humbled by this opportunity given to speak, because I really love speaking to people, young students who have so much of, fire to go out and do things. Just remember that, I would say one last thing, that life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It is about learning to dance in the rain. So every day may not be extremely bright, but remember that there will always be light at the end of the tunnel. So do not give up, and always keep marching forward and looking ahead in life. there is no turning back. Remember that you are now in this journey and you will do a very good job. And good is again very subjective, right? So do not compare yourself with somebody else. Your good is just purely your good. So I would just say that